I literally stop playing in the middle of a song because I can't breathe. That's not from a medical forum. That's from a comment someone left on my last video. He plays drums for his church and he has heart palpitations and he can't catch his breath sometimes and he has to stop playing in the middle of songs. And right underneath that comment, another guy says that nobody warns young bass players what 40 years of that thing hanging on your neck does to you. 30 years on that bench has cost you something, and nobody at your church has ever counted it. And there are three main costs to this, and the third one is the one you've been calling loyalty. So let's start with the one that you can already feel, and it's what I call the posture debt. So the keyboard player is on the bench for hours with no backrest. The organist is reaching with two hands on both manuals and using both feet at the same time with no backrest. The drummer most times is on a throne somebody bought back in 2009 and never even bothered to adjust. The bass player has 10, 12 pounds hanging off one shoulder, the same shoulder, week after week for 20 years. Another commenter brought this up when he said, your back hurts if you're a keyboardist, or if you read music, your eyes need rest. So you have to stretch. Bathroom break, mental decompression. Read that again. That's not a man complaining. That's a job description. I've been doing this thing as a church musician for over 35 years, and I've been on executive boards, and I've been in rooms where budgets get decided for musicians. And not one time in that 35 years has the issue of what being on that bench for 4 hours does to the body. Not money, but what it does to the body. It's just never come up, because this isn't just a one Sunday cost. This is a compounding cost. See, you don't feel it at all at 25. And then at 35, you feel a little something. By the time you hit 45, you know exactly which way you can and can't turn your head. And then when you hit 60, you got a whole routine for sitting down that nobody in that congregation will ever even notice. So do this with me right now. Think about which way you can't really turn your neck anymore. Go ahead. And most of you already knew the answer to this before I even finished the sentence. You don't have a bad back. You have a receipt. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through this whole video before I give you something to do. So here's the fix right now. Put the day in writing, not the money, the day. This is for when you're talking to your church leaders. Say this: before we lock in the schedule, can we put the call time and the dismissal time in writing? I want to plan my week around it accordingly and accurately. And that's not a demand. That's a scheduling question. And it might be the first time in your church's history that somebody made that day visible on paper. So do it this week. Now, I got two other fixes coming, but I need to give you the other two costs first, because the third one is the reason the first two never got fixed. So the second cost is there is no off season for church musicians. And this is the one that I don't really think churches understand at all. Every other physical job on earth has recovery built into it. Athletes have an off season. A truck driver has a federally mandated rest. That's law. That's not a favor somebody's doing for him. And a warehouse worker gets 15 minutes here and there to take a rest because somebody figured out a long time ago that bodies break if you don't give them one. Church musicians get none of that. There's Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter, watch night services, anniversaries, and then the musical. And then somebody passes away and you're playing for a funeral on a Tuesday morning that you had to take off work to do. There's a commenter that illustrates this as well. He says that his call time is at 9:30. The pastor started preaching at 12:20. Now, as a former government employee, he says that at a secular job, he could have legally taken 2 or 3 breaks in that time. And he's not guessing. He worked somewhere that had a standard. And he said this: to be told to sit for 1 to 4 hours is punitive. And here's the part that really gets me. Your church already knows that bodies have needs. The building itself proves it. There's accessible bathrooms around the building. There are padded pews that somebody paid to have padded. The nursery has a changing table. There's a green room for the guest evangelist who is there one time. And there's a chair on the platform for the pastor. The whole building was designed around bodies, just not yours. Name the last person at your church who asked how your back was doing. Take a second. I'll wait. All right, let's talk about the third cost, because this is the one that does the most damage. And it's this. You can't call in sick. And it's not necessarily because they would fire you. It's because if you don't show up, nobody plays. There's no second player, and there's no call list, and there's no rotation. There's just you. So you show up and play while you're hurt. You show up and play while you have the flu. You played 6 weeks after a surgery when you weren't supposed to even be lifting anything. And you gotta see this comment that a church musician left that illustrates this. He says he had 30 surgeries, a nerve disorder, chronic pain, and he pushed through all of it to play and still got treated like an outsider. And if that one hit you, hit the like button on this video, because that helps this video spread to the person that's playing this Sunday hurt and he thinks he's the only one. Because what I'm about to say now is what most church musicians have never heard out loud. That is not dedication. That is a staffing problem that you have been absorbing for free. Let me say that again because I want it to sit right. Every Sunday you show up hurt or sick, you're covering a hole in that church's staffing problem with your own body. When was the last time you called in sick for church? Not couldn't make it, called in sick, actually said the words. Most have never even done it one time. Now you already got the first fix. Here's the second two. Next, you want to ask for the chair before you ask for the raise. Nobody does this, and it's one of the smartest asks you've got. You say this: I'm not asking for a budget line. I'm asking for a chair or stool with the back on it and somewhere that musicians can sit down for 10 or 15 minutes. Can we do that? It's small, it's cheap, and it's really easy to do. And here's why it matters way more than you think. If a church can't find you a chair, you already know what that raise conversation is going to sound like. And the third fix is what I call bench depth. And what that means is you train a sub and you ask for rotation. So you say this: I'd like to bring in a second player to rotate with me, not because I'm going anywhere, but because this ministry shouldn't stop if I get the flu. No pastor on earth can argue with this one sentence. And if they fight you on it, they just told you something. They don't see a musician. They see a single point of failure. You're allowed to leave a room that's costing you your body. That's not rebellion. That's math. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. All of those conversations are ones that you are going to have to go start. And I know how that goes because many of you have tried it and you have been labeled rebellious or difficult just for even bringing up the conversation. So here's what I've come to believe. That conversation was never supposed to be started by you. The one person who could fix all of these things in a single Sunday is not the musicians. It's the man in the pulpit. And most of them have never even really thought about it. A pastor himself commented on my last video about this. He said that he doesn't mind musicians stepping out during the sermon, but he can't get the rest of the leadership on board. And a church director said that he had never once considered it. So most of them just don't even know, but some of them do. Some of them have watched you do this for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They know exactly what it costs, and they still won't move a chair. That's a different problem than not knowing. So let me leave you with this. You've given that church your hands, your ears, your Sundays, your spine, 30 years of it. And the question was never whether or not they appreciated you. The question is whether you are going to keep paying a bill that nobody agreed to send you. I believe in you and I believe in your gift. And you can do this for another 20, 25 years, but only if someone starts counting the costs for it. And that has to start with you. So you remember what I just said, that some of them already know? That's something that took me years to understand, because it isn't the budget and it isn't because they don't see you. There's something else that's going on between pastors and church musicians that once I caught, I couldn't unsee it in any church that I walked into. So watch this video here on the screen next, because if you're going to have the chair conversation, you need to know exactly what it is you're walking into.